Welcome everyone. Hope you're having a good day, a good Monday. Uh, Hopefully you're here to learn about managing DPAs for SOPPA, and the way we're encouraging you to do that is to use the ISPA SDPC database. My name is Chris Worley. I'm the Director of Technology Services for the Learning Technology Center. Prior to being at the Learning Technology Center, I was the um, technology person at Williamsville School District, just north of Springfield, for 21 years. And so I've encountered almost and wore just as many hats as you, except I didn't have to do it through COVID, and I didn't have to do it with SOPA in the air. So I feel uh, like we're putting some things in the right direction for you to be able to manage this. And so this week and also on May 10th, I'll be going through this program just kind of to share how the database works, what's available. Next week, I'll actually cover the Illinois NDPA agreement and kind of go through all the different parts of it, just so you have a better understanding of that. And that'll help when you're looking at the database and different things as well. So my contact information is here. Please reach out to me, schedule a time on my calendar if there's other questions you have beyond the times that we have together. Um, but I'm always available, open to questions. I'm learning just as much as you guys are learning, and you guys are probably learning more than I am. So that helps me learn what you guys are doing and what things are happening for you. So as we get started here, I just want to launch a poll here just to kind of see where everybody's at, make sure I'm going the right direction. It also gives me a chance to get a drink, take a breath before I get started here. So number one, just wanted to know if you have an ISPA account. I also should have put on there, I don't know what that is, but you will find out what that is today. You'll also find out what the other sessions are that I'm talking about, and I will also introduce you to the webpage that is mentioned there as well. And yes, the ISPA account is the same as the SDPC account, should be. All right. Thank you for sharing, and we will hopefully get you all to answer yes to this question as we go on today, and have plenty of opportunities for learning as we go forward as well. So and I'll just share those results so you know that you're not alone in all this stuff, and that if you haven't attended anything else, you're right there with 50% of the other people. And if you haven't got an account, we're going to show you how to do that right now. And I'm also going to show you where the website's at. So let's get started. I'm going to, the slideshow is really for you to have as a extra piece of information. Feel free to make a copy of this slideshow. And I'll put it in the chat one more time for anybody that joined just after I posted that. It's meant to be a resource for you, just to keep notes on, to take anything. So make a copy of the spreadsheet or of the, I love spreadsheets, but make a copy of the slideshow so that you have that available to you. But I won't spend a lot of time in the slideshow itself. I'm going to go right to the database and show you how it works. The first thing I want to do though first is make sure that you know where everything's at beyond today. One of those things is the web page that I mentioned in the poll, and that's this ISPA website. It has all this information on it. It's got the navigation to the database. It's got the YouTube playlists, and this is the sample of the YouTube playlist for the tutorials. So you'll see that down here in the list. This is at the middle of that page. You'll see the PDF workflows. So there's a couple PDF documents in here talking about how to use ISPA to comply with SOPPA, managing your agreements with the ISPA, and then another document that we just recently added, which is getting started with SOPPA. So some good things here. Also reasonable security practices, which is part of SOPPA as well, just to familiarize yourself with that type of stuff. And we won't go over that stuff today, but also the Illinois NDPA agreement is here for your reference and for your viewing. And I hope I'm sharing my screen. I'm not seeing my little green arrow around it, so I'm assuming that I am. If somebody could just verify that that's in the chat. All right, good. Thanks, John. And I don't see any confused faces, but that's because you all don't have your cameras on. So, and that's all right. Other things on here, the All Things SOPA slide deck is there as well. And so that comes into the upcoming events. So upcoming events. So today we're doing the managing DPAs. Every Tuesday I have an all things SOPA conversation where I share ideas and things that are going on with SOPA and how to manage agreements and all those types of things. So it's an opportunity for you each week just to kind of be focused on what there is going on. A little bit of it is just making sure that you're not feeling alone in the process, that you realize that other schools in the state are also tackling this project and doing all those things. So you can find the slide deck there, and that's a continuous slide deck. So since we began those on February 9th, you should be able to go back and find all the materials that has been shared through that slide deck. And then other things that are going on, May 3rd, register for that event to learn more about the Illinois NDPA. And then there's a couple roundtables and different things that are going on in different areas as well for people that are local to those areas. So check out this resource page, use it for beginning your navigation, use it for just on a regular basis. If you're doing anything SOPA, come back to this page just for a heads up on any new resources that are there, reminder of the playlist that's there that will tell you how to do a lot of things I'm going to tell you how to do today. But those are on demand. You can get right to them, and they're short couple-minute videos that Sean Mullins from Olympia School District actually put together for us. So check those out, and we'll get started here. So the first thing you're going to do is looking at that resources page. This Join ISPA is the link that you're going to use, and I'm actually going to transition to that page right now. So I'm pretty much leaving the slideshow for the rest of the time. I may jump back in just to make sure I haven't missed anything, but this is where we're gonna be just kind of navigating the web, going through the database and looking. So the services ISPA website from the LTC, the first thing you're gonna do if you haven't done so already is go to Join ISPA. And on this page, I need to stretch this out a little bit because it's dynamic. But if you already have an account, your name should appear here, or your school should appear here. If you don't have an account, you can go to select a district, and then any name that's in here means that those schools have not created an account yet. And it's not necessary to create an account to be SOPA compliant. This is just a method for using the database and something that's going to help you in that process. So if you choose to do that, you'll select your school name and then fill out this information, and it'll send a request to me to make that available to you, approve that. So as soon as this is over, if you've requested one, I'll get that to you and make that available to you. So once you do that, you will be able to log into the ISPA website. And again, you can bookmark this page and go directly to the login. I like the idea of coming to this page first and then logging in. I know it's an extra click, but at least you'll see upcoming events, see anything new that's there, and be able to get the updates. So once you have your user account, we're just going to kind of go through the menu choices here and show you a lot of the information that's here, um, and show you how it can help with the SOPA process. Um, and I'm just going to do a real quick check, and I notice there's more people in here, so I just want to make sure people have the slide deck beyond today. But we'll also have these recordings, and we'll post this video to uh, the the playlists on that resource page. So under account management, this is where you can come in and change your password, edit any income account information. So if you want to change your username, change your password, you can do that under edit user account information. You can also edit your district account information. So this is where you can change your district name. If it's not spelled the way you want it spelled, you can put your district resource or web page there as well. I'm just going to change this because I think we've changed that. You can update a logo, and then this part down here where it says custom page title and custom page description, we're going to come back to that in a minute. So those are some things you can do as far as saving your account info or changing your account information. Other things under account management. So, and I'm going to apologize right up front. This is going to be a fire hose of information. I'm just going to give it all to you in an hour, and if we need to revisit anything, we can definitely do that. I won't like kick you out of the room after an hour, but I will go fast and try to get all these things covered for you. So manage district users. So if you have multiple users that need access in your district, we have access so that the RETCs can help when people need help. But my recommendation for this is to keep it minimum to just the people that are going to be managing the agreements. So maybe your technology person, or maybe you have a secretary or an assistant that's going to be able to help with managing some of this stuff. Also, you can add users to for those people that are going to sign agreements. So maybe you're going to manage the agreements as the technology person or as the curriculum person, but maybe your superintendent is going to sign all the agreements. So you can add a user, um, and in the slideshow, I basically have this screen, which just shows you this screen. Um, but as a superintendent, if all they're going to do is sign the agreements, you can make them an exhibitee signer in that process. I'll show you what that means in a little bit, but that means that they can log in, and the only thing that they can really do is sign the exhibitees. And but you can add anybody that's going to be managing agreements, you can put them in here, but it's not necessary to have an account for all your teachers, or even some people that are just going to be searching the database. You may not need those accounts for them, but you can add accounts and manage them that way. The other thing you can do under account management is add steps for managing your progress workflow. So manage progress workflow is a way to uh, see a resource from the beginning of this is a resource we have, and then knowing whether or not we have an agreement with them as we go through the process. And then ultimately, if they would not sign an NDPA, you could put that progress in there as well. Um, in the slideshow, I show you what this sample looks like. This is a sample that's being used by a few other districts as well. So as I go into a sharing the subscribe and unsubscribe process for viewing requests, this is what I'm referring to as far as progress workflow. So if it's something that you want to be able to manage within um, your account, you can definitely do this. It's not a requirement, but you can see as I go through some of the stuff where it's going to be helpful. So you can add steps in here, put them in specific order, and then you can even have those progresses emailed to individuals as you change those progress type things. So if you want the email message that's going to be sent to the requester, you can actually put that message in there, and that's what this is. The slideshow actually has text that you can cut and paste into this process and copy this process, or you can create your own steps and add those in there for yourself as well if you want to manage your work progress in another way. That additional district account just lines up with the managed district users. So moving on to tools, I'm just going to look at a couple different things in here. Obviously, with any tool, what you put into it, you're going to be able to get out of it. So if you put some work and effort into this and decide that this tool is not going to be for you and you want to do it a different way, you can export all of your data out of this and put it into another system. Basically, it's going to exit it or export it out to a spreadsheet, and you can access that. So that's a plus for any system, whatever you're using, making sure that you can export information out. The customized resource listing. So this is kind of beginning with the end in mind. If I mentioned before, the custom page title and the description. So that information again can get to two different ways, but this is the important piece for what I'm talking about right now: the custom page title and the custom page description. So under tools, if you go to custom resource listing, step 3, this is the link that will show you what agreements that you have in your system, and that is kind of what you can this is what you can display on your website. You can create a link from your website to this, or you can embed it into your website depending on what kind of website you have. But this would show all the resources that you have, the agreements that you have, the beginning and end dates for your agreements, your grade levels, your content area, and then also a listing of the data that's associated with that particular agreement. If you look up here at the top, this is that custom page title, and this is the custom program description. So you can see where those two pieces of information fit in, and then your logo will appear here. So that's under edit account information. And then this link is what you would use for any kind of public facing type of thing. And I will pause just real quick to answer this question in the chat. Can you please explain the difference between full district admin and admin assistant? I haven't verified exactly what the difference is, other than my assumption, and we all know where assumptions will get us, but my assumption is that the full district admin can add users, whereas the admin assistant is the person that can manage the agreements, but they can't necessarily add any other users or manage users or delete users or anything like that. So I believe that that's the case for full district admin versus admin assistant? And that's a good question. These other tools are available to you. I think the main thing you're going to use is the custom resource listing. This digital resource request form is something, again, that you can put this link on your web page, and then requests would come automatically into the database tool, so you could see those requests coming in. So if you want to have some schools are using Google Forms to have teachers submit requests, but you could use this request form to have a teacher fill this out, and then you would have that in the database. It would show up under view statewide requests for your district. And that's covered in a video, and we do have that. Some districts are using that. Others are just using like a Google form that goes into a spreadsheet so that they can track other information as well. So tools, custom resource listing, digital request form, those are the two main things you can use. If your district has some kind of programming people. Some people like to use APIs. That's a way of pulling information out of this database. So any public information that's available in the SDBC database would be available to using that API. That would be for another session that I would not be giving. That would be somebody else that's a lot smarter than me, would have to give that presentation. Your resources. So moving right along across here, again, the first few things really you're not going to be doing a whole lot with, but this view statewide new request, this is a way that you're going to come into the database and you're going to be able to search and see what other districts are doing um, with certain applications. So if you're searching for something like um, Clever, you could see that Clever is right there. That somebody's modified that, but they didn't provide any progress. So we don't really know what they're doing. That's where the progress workflow comes in. So if you click on any of these titles of these fields, they will sort by that particular field. So you'll see that this one, Art of Education, working on the details of an agreement. So that just tells you as a district that you shouldn't, not that you shouldn't, but that you don't necessarily have to go out and get another agreement with that particular vendor. So this would be really kind of along the lines of um, getting an originating agreement. There's no agreement in the database at this point, and I'm going to be throwing around originating and subscribing. And that's really next week's session, talking about that process and how that works, but I'll try to explain it as we get into the agreements. Um, but you can see just the progress that's being made. So those people have that progress. And what you can do is, as they would update the progress, if you were subscribed, so if it says subscribe, you need to click on subscribe to be subscribed. If it says unsubscribed, then if you click on it, you would be unsubscribed. So if you see unsubscribed, then you're subscribed. And I know that that's confusing and can be confusing, but if you're subscribed, you're going to get an update every time somebody puts a new progress on this particular application. So if they update the progress, then you're going to get an email based on that. So that would be a reason for people to use that when they're working on getting a brand new agreement with a particular vendor. Other things you can do in here, again, you could spend time doing the whole sort and all those types of things to find a particular application. And as you scroll down here to the bottom, you're going to see that there's 704 entries in this at this point. So one way to do that is to search here. So if I search for Seesaw, I could see that there's a couple people looking for that agreement, so they haven't actually made that agreement yet. Or if I do GimKit, again, I can see that there's a few districts here that are looking for GimKit. So you know that that's one place that there could be people that are looking for the same thing that you're looking for. And this is just a way. This is kind of that secondary. This will be the second place you look for agreements, but this is just a way for you to see that and to be able to search for that. So that's under your resources and view statewide new requests. These other things up here are really about at the kind of the whole organizational level, even the national level, that these are resources. So if you add a new resource, you're really saying, I'm going to add Screencastify. And that Screencastify is a resource that's available to the whole national level. That's not really something that you're probably going to ever do. If you do get into that situation, please reach out to me because there may already be the resources available. It's just not spelled the same, or we just don't want to have duplicates in there if we can avoid it. So this is really where you're going to spend most of your time, is in the district agreements. And I'm going to actually start in this location here, view all statewide or state DPAs. And so DPA stands for Data Privacy Agreements. And this listing shows all the agreements that are available that school districts have entered into in the state of Illinois. So this is just the state of Illinois agreements. This database is a shared database with all the other alliances across the United States. I think there's 31 right now. So California, Colorado, Utah, Wisconsin, Massachusetts are all using this database to track their agreements within their states. And we as the LTC paid for the membership to create the Illinois Student Privacy Alliance, which is the ISPA, and we're using these SDPC tools to manage all these agreements. So in Illinois, these are the agreements that are in place for you to look at and see, and all of these agreements would be listed. So just in the case of Litchfield, COSD 12, these agreements are going to be listed on their custom resource listing and display a public viewing for all of their agreements. You'll notice that there's 2,300 entries in this, and that means that there's 2,300 agreements with different applications across the state of Illinois. And this is where I'm going to take a little bit of a pause and jump out of the idea of the database and try to give you a little bit of information about the Illinois NDPA agreement. So the Illinois NDPA agreement is a data privacy agreement that was put together kind of in two different stages. One is the NDPA, which is the National Data Privacy Agreement. And if you remember when I talked about the resource page, the very first entry there is that Illinois NDPA agreement. The first part of that agreement, everything up through Exhibit F, is the NDPA agreement. And so what the idea is that that NDPA agreement is going to be utilized across the alliances across the United States by vendors, whether it's Seesaw or Discovery Education or Edgenuity, all these that are listed here. And so they can use that as we look at this agreement and we know what the Illinois or what the NDPA is. The Exhibit G within each state can be utilized for state only laws. So the Exhibit G is meant to be there for the state of Illinois laws. And so that was created through the work of the Illinois Association of School Boards and the Illinois Council of School Attorneys, SOPPA working group, looked at the NDPA in general, looked at all the Illinois legislation, and came up with terms for the Exhibit G. And then the last exhibit is the Exhibit H, which allows districts or vendors to put specific terms in there based on their individual needs. The idea of this document is that you as a school district have that agreement looked at by your district, exhibits the NDPA plus the Exhibit G. And then once you have that looked at by your legal team and they say that is an okay agreement, that we would, the bones of that agreement is good. Then as you go to get an agreement with a vendor, the idea is that we should be able to have an originating agreement district that goes out and gets that originating agreement. And then there's an exhibit within that Illinois NDPA called the Exhibit E, which is a general offer of terms, which allows every other school district that uses the Illinois NDPA agreement, so has had that vetted, that they could subscribe to that original agreement. And I know this is, if you're brand new to this, it's going to be confusing come next week, and I'll try to explain it better. But the idea is that there can be one district that goes out and gets an originating agreement, and then all the other districts within the state of Illinois can subscribe to that district if their district attorney says that that's okay and they agree to the Illinois NDPA. You can also go out and get individual agreements with any company you want where there's not that subscribing process, and ultimately do it all on your own and go out and get agreements with all the different applications you have and post them in here or post them in whatever system you want as well. But this system was developed over 4 years ago through Massachusetts and California and some other states, that the functionalities here for that subscribing process to happen. So as we're looking through all these agreements, all that to say that some of these agreements are subscribing agreements where they've actually used the exhibitee to sign on to the agreement, or some of them are the originating full agreement that has that possibility of other districts subscribing. An originating agreement is specified when you sort by this agreement type or by this field. You will see that yes, this is an originating agreement. You'll also see the little target here that shows that it's originating. So that's one way to see that. And I'm going to show you another way that you'll see that as well. But you could search through here and you could see that Book Creator is maybe an app that you're using. So you can search and see that as I add other characters into the search field, it adds on and filters based on whatever's there. And if I'm sorting by originator, that should come to the top. As we're looking at these agreements, it's important that you as a district will look at the full agreement. So the full agreement should be the one that's on top. And if I click on that, we'll see this originating agreement between Sunnybrook and Tools for Schools. And then as I scroll down through here, you can see that it's filled out. Again, we'll go through this more in depth next week. But you'll see that the Exhibit G should always be checked. Exhibit H will be checked if there's additional terms, which would require you to look at that and maybe vet that with your attorney. The Exhibit E just means that this is available for subscribing, and so that there should be a Exhibit E that's signed by the vendor that allows for school districts to subscribe to that. So as I go down through here, we'll see that the agreement's signed. We'll see that all of the different parts of the agreement. Exhibit A is just a description of services. Exhibit B is the data. Exhibit C is the definition. So there's really nothing there that you would see. Exhibit D is for when you're no longer using the application. And then Exhibit E, this is the document that's going to be uploaded by the originating school district as a separate upload, that the bottom of this is going to be available for you as a subscribing district to be able to sign on to and agree to the terms that are in this full document. Because there's no Exhibit H, we should be able to scroll down here and see that Exhibit H has nothing in it. So then you can look at the Exhibit E, and I'll answer that question just in a second here, Dave. If I look at the Exhibit E, it should be signed at the top by the vendor, should include an email address for the vendor. And the bottom of this one-page file should be blank. And the reason it's going to be blank is because that's what you, as the subscribing district, is going to fill out and send to this email address as being a subscribing school based on the originating agreement. And Dave is asking, what if the Exhibit E is not checked? If the Exhibit E is not checked and there is an Exhibit E in the document, ultimately we need to fix that specific clerical error in the sense that it should have been checked in the agreement. So back here, well, in the full agreement on page 2, it should be checked. And so we should go back and fix that as the district. If you come across those things, please let me know. And we're going to try to be kind of quality assurance for some of those things so that individual schools don't have to reach out to other individual schools, that we can kind of be that in between to help with that process and help fix those things that may be just oversteps. The vendor should ultimately click on that box, and then if they don't, the originating district should catch that. But if they don't, that's something we should be able to fix as well. And I'll write that down. Thanks, Edgenuity. I'll write that down as one to check out. So looking through here, this is a way that you can see what other agreements are there. So this would be a way for you to kind of see what's available for you to subscribe to. Or if there is no subscribing process, if there's not an originating agreement, it's possible that you can go out and get an originating agreement for that particular agreement. And I will just throw in, there is some issues with version 1 and version 1.0A. 1.0A is the newest version of the agreement, and we need to fix some things on the database that actually display that correctly with what's underneath. So if I look at this full agreement, version 1, this agreement should be version 1 here. If it's a version 1A, that just means that you make sure that you have both of these vetted by your attorney. Some people are not able to sign version 1.0 because their attorney says that they want everything to be version 1.0A, and some things are showing up in the database as 1.0A, but they're really version 1. So we need to work out some things with that as well. So that's view state DPAs. Again, there is the ability to download this to Excel or cut and paste it into Google Sheets and be able to, if you want to manage it, navigate it through a spreadsheet, you can do that. Obviously, if you do that, it's just a snapshot of whatever is here. So you'd have to do that again and again every time you wanted to do that to stay up to date. So like there's 2,304. If I refresh this page, and I scroll down, there's 2,308. So people are using the database, they're subscribing, they're uploading originating agreements. So just know that this is going to be ever changing and available to you, or updating on a regular basis. I'll answer that question as we go here. I'll get back to those questions. I just want to make sure I get through as much as we can get through here. So viewing all state DPAs, that's one way of seeing what is in the database. Another way of just kind of looking to see what's in the database is to use this auto exhibitee creator. So auto exhibitee creator was originally made for the state of Utah for their process, and something that we turned on just a couple months ago. Something that Wisconsin is also using. So it's something that's available to us, and it makes it easier to do this process, but it doesn't take away any of the steps of verifying what you're signing on to. So just be aware that it is very easy to subscribe to an agreement that's already there, but also know that you still need to look at the agreement and understand what you're subscribing to and is available to you. So just like before, if I wanted to search for GimKit and see what originating agreements are out there, I can do that through exhibitee creator. The reason I can see the reason why I will see originating agreements in this auto exhibitee creator is because the only reason you can use an exhibitee is if that original agreement or if that agreement was an originating agreement. So in order for GimKit to be in this list, there has to be an originating agreement with it. So if I look at this Illinois NDPA again, I can see that it was signed between Park Ridge and GimKit, and I can look down through here. There is an Exhibit E. I can look at that Exhibit E and see that it was signed. At the top, it has the group subscriptions at GimKit email address assigned to it. It's signed by somebody at GimKit. So now, if I look at this Exhibit E, there's a manual process, and I'm not sure why these aren't showing up when I first opened them up. There is a process, there is a manual process for adding an agreement and adding it as a subscribing agreement, where you could download this agreement, sign it, and then be able to upload it again into the system manually. The auto exhibitee creator, actually what it does is it takes your account information for the person that's signed in to this process right now. So I'm logged in as Chris Worley, the LTC account, which would be my district. If I create an exhibit E, it's going to take that blank, the bottom of that blank exhibit E, and put my account information on there. It's basically just going to be text-based, but by clicking on that exhibit E, it's creating that process for it to be signed and emailed to the email that's supplied with GimKit. The other button here, so that would be the create exhibit E. The second button here is prepare exhibit E. You are not the signer. So if I'm the technology person, or I'm the curriculum person, or I'm just I'm an administrative assistant or a secretary or a custodian or bus driver or whoever is responsible for managing the agreements, I can come in here and make sure that this is an agreement that we want to have. And if I prepare this exhibit E for signing, it's going to take that and throw it into a queue. I think I clicked that button. It's going to put it into a queue for me as a full district admin or a district admin account, or for that account that's called e-signer only. So if you set up your superintendent or a super assistant superintendent or whoever the person is that's going to be assigned to sign agreements, they would log in and they would be able to see this queue, which I'll show you in just a second, that would allow them to sign the exhibitees. So you could put this information in here. This is the stuff in green is going to be stuff that shows up on the website. So if you wanted these, if you use this particular application, pre-K through 3, you could use it there. If you use it for English and for science, you could click on that. If there's any other agreement restrictions, you could put that in there. Contact information, if you know who the vendor contact information. Obviously, you don't have to do any of these things if you're just wanting to manage your applications. And then I would save this for the queue for that person that's logged in to sign. Again, district admins can sign, and also that account user that is the exhibitee signer only account can sign. So now if I come over here and search again for GimKit, it's not there because I've prepared that for signing. I don't need to do that again. And so you could do that repetitively and come through and just select the ones that you want. Where those show up is under View Prepared Exhibitees. And so you can see that I have two there, one for eHall Pass, one for GimKit. Being a district admin for this user, I do see this option. If I sign them, they will have my account information on them. But if I just leave them here, and then the person that's going to sign the agreements logs in with their account, they could come to this location, view prepared exhibitees. When they click on it, it's going to put their account information on that particular exhibitee. So I'm just going to sign these just so you can see this process. And then we'll show you what comes out. And so those applications just got an email from me with the PDF document that shows that we're subscribing to that agreement. So the process, what the database does with that process is that it links the original. So this is the original agreement between Sunnybrook and EduSpire for eHall Pass. And then it links the fact that we have the exhibitee here that is signed by me, and the exhibitee should have been sent to Brian, and he's going to wonder who in the world Chris Worley is from the LTC and why he's subscribing to an agreement. But that's what should happen. If I want to change anything in this agreement, I can do that. So right now I'm in manage agreement. So I can see the two agreements that I've subscribed to. Again, if I look at the GimKit one, I should see at the bottom that this one was signed by me as well and emailed to group subscriptions. If I want to change anything about that or edit information, I can do that. I can edit any type of information on here as well. If I want to get rid of data elements, I can do that. I can delete the agreement altogether, which at some point I'll do so that there's not information hanging out here. And let me go back and look at these questions here. And then we'll actually wrap up with showing you the manual process for uploading agreements. Are people printing these and scanning them in, or are the exhibitees editable and will accept an e-signature? I think they're doing both. When the exhibitee is editable, they are doing that. In most cases, it's probably not going to be editable in the sense of being able to sign it with Adobe, but that isn't an option if you have a way of doing that. If we haven't had our legal counsel approve the Illinois NDPA, should we have them approve both versions of 1 and 1A to get the most out of the work already done by districts? I would say yes. If you can get them to agree that 1.0 is a legal document, it was entered into originally. If you can get them to agree to that, yes, it will make things a lot easier and take advantage of the work that's already done. In some cases, that hasn't been the case, and they've only accepted anything moving forward is only acceptable if it's a version 1.0A. So that is something to work out with your agreement. Do we need to email the company when we create an exhibitee to get a verbal approval that we can ascribe to the NDPA, or is this done automatically? It should be done automatically. If for some reason you're finding that that's not the case with certain things, you can definitely let me know and I can troubleshoot that. I am working on a way to get some verification and some email like logging processes through the SDPC to show us that the email was actually sent and that who it went to and those types of things. Um, so those are things that we are trying to uh, troubleshoot if necessary. But if you specifically use the exhibitee creator, it should automatically email that exhibitee signed document with the text-based signature to the company. What happens if the person who signs the exhibitee from our district leaves? Is this still legal, or we deemed to do it over? I ultimately have never thought about that. That is a good question, Gayla, and I will have to take that one offline and see what the actual legal sense of that is. It should ultimately be a signature for the school district, is my initial thought, that they're signing it on behalf of the district. So it should be on behalf of the district that agreement is in place. But I will definitely follow up with that question and see what I can figure out. All agreements are good for 1 year or the length of the contract. Ultimately, the agreement should be good. There's been some clarification on this and some questions asked about this before. Ultimately, it should be good for the length of as long as you're using the application. Initially, we started putting in here expires on 3 years. And that was based on information from what we were doing, what we were seeing from other states doing. Ultimately, the data privacy agreement should not expire until the actual you're no longer using the application. So you should be able to have that data privacy agreement in place for as long as you're using the software. There is a 3-year date that I think has been thrown around, that you can only subscribe up until 3 years. So that's what that 3-year expiration would be ultimately, is that the originating status would expire after 3 years, so that people couldn't sign on to it after 3 years. So that after 3 years, a new originating agreement would have to be made for additional schools to subscribe to that. But anybody that signed on to that original one should be good to go. If we have employees in this district through another institute to work with district students, like do we also have to post their resources through our district? Your district, if this is a special ed co-op type thing, you should only have to worry about the applications that you're using, that you have a data privacy. You should only get data privacy agreement for the applications that you're using at your particular institution. If another school is using that and your employees are using that agreement, that should be up to that other entity. If they're purchasing the software, they have the relationship with the software, they should be the ones that have the data privacy agreement. But the same thing is in place for you as another institution, whether it's career ed tech or special ed or an ROE or something. You should have that agreement if you're storing information in there for students. And then the last thing, and we should wrap up right at time here. And we'll go into this a little bit more. The NDPA and the database are tied pretty closely together in the sense of that subscribing and originating process. So there may be more clarification if you come back on next Monday, but also check out the videos and the resources and everything that's available to you. So just a little bit about this particular screen. If you don't have an agreement, but you want to have an agreement, you can you can say, no, we don't have an agreement, and put the information in for that application. This would be similar to the new request and the progress workflow type of thing. So that would be what you would say if, no, we don't actually have an agreement, but we want to eventually have one. So you could put that in your database. If you do have an agreement, primarily these two options here are going to be what you're going to be looking at: national standard agreement with the exhibitee, the national vendor specific agreement with the exhibitee. Excuse me. The exhibit, if an exhibit H is used, normally what's going to happen and what we try to want to do moving forward is make that a vendor specific agreement, just to say that it's beyond it's beyond the Illinois NDPA agreement, because our schools have vetted the Illinois NDPA agreement. If there's an exhibit H, then there needs to be extra review of that document to make sure exhibit H follows what your attorney is willing to look at. So ultimately, and it would be specific to that particular vendor. And so we want that to ultimately be here. Um, Either one of these is acceptable ultimately, but we just want to have that. Just if a subscribing district comes in and sees that it's a vendor specific, they'll know that there's an exhibit H there. Also, they'll know because there's the check mark, but that's just another way of looking at it to see. Um, the subscribing process. So if you've downloaded the actual exhibit E document, then you can sign it and upload it with your agreement here. Again, that's a manual process that you can avoid by using the exhibit E creator. So I'm not going to go into that. There is also a video for that as well. But if you are an originating district, and I will cover this again next week, just because I think it's goes in line with what the Illinois NDPA is. Um, this is that part that we're missing, where when we switched to the version 1.0A, we took away the ability to upload the version 1 agreement as far as specifying that it's a version 1 agreement. So we need to get that back in there so that we can specify that it is a version 1 agreement for those districts that went through the process to get an agreement with version 1, which is a legal document. They should be able to upload it as a version 1. What they've done is they've chosen version 1.0A and still continue to upload it, and it just shows that when people go to subscribe to it, there's confusion there. You would select the resource. So if I chose from this drop down, I could choose the particular uh, resource that I wanted. So if I type GimKit, I can do that. I can put the date approved. Again, this is based on what you have in the document, not necessarily today's date. So if you're uploading, if you've went through the process of getting this agreement, you actually got it in March, you just haven't uploaded it yet, put it in as March as whatever the date is that you approved it. And then ultimately, um, I would suggest putting 3 years on here just so that you have that information in there and it's available. Take the email from uh, exhibit E and put it here. So that would be whatever the vendor wants you to send that email, or wants us to send the email to when people subscribe. The uploaded signed agreement, this is the full agreement, and it does talk about that we want the name of the application and then the district name here as far as a file name. So when I choose file, you may not see my screen here, but I'm choosing the full document. That would be the 23 pages or whatever agreement. You want to leave that as active. You can add the agreement restrictions if there's certain things in there that you want to make note of for public viewing. You can select the grades. You can select the subject areas. You can put this information in here. This may be helpful for your district. It may not be. Um, it's not required. It is public information that'll be displayed, but it's not something you have to do. When you fill that out, you click on continue. And I think I already have a GIMP kit, so it threw an error. If you get an error like that, make sure you let me know, and we'll troubleshoot what that error is. It may have been because I didn't select. I'm gonna go back to GIMP kit. I think it's because I didn't have a agreement type set. The addendum is the exhibitee. So I'm uploading an exhibitee. Some states use a different name. That's why that drop down's there. But this is always the exhibitee. Again, I choose the one page that I have that's signed by the vendor at the top, but blank at the bottom. So this is for future schools to subscribe to. When I click on save that, then I can choose what my different data types were that were in Exhibit B, and then I can move those over there. There is a request into the SDPC to change the order of these so they are the same as what's in the Exhibit B. Ultimately, you can skip that step and come back and do this later if you want to do that, or just skip the step. Save the information. And then the last step is to provide a purpose. Some people are using this currently for the subcontractor information. So if you have a web address for a PDF document or something that they're providing, you can put that in there. Again, you can put the vendor contact information in there so that whether another state is looking for that information or whether somebody just needs to contact the vendor about this agreement, they can do so. And then when you save that, it should go into your list of agreements. So if I go to your district agreements, I did it. I had already done GimKit, so it's got some extra stuff in here. So this is not a good example of proper use, but the idea is the same. As far as uploading the agreements, I can delete these other ones that are not active or not right. So I can manage that through the manage agreements, and then I can see these agreements here. If I look at this one, this should be the full agreement. And so I downloaded somebody else's agreement and used it for my full agreement. And then the exhibitee should be here blank for somebody else to sign at the bottom. And then ultimately, going back to the very beginning, if we look at customized resource listing, this would be the public facing. Nobody needs to log in. Nobody needs to do anything. They would see my list of things here for somebody else to, so the public could see it, the parents could see it. This is one of the requirements of SOPPA is for you to display your agreements to the public. So that pretty much wraps up. I don't think I missed anything in the process of all this. Let me go down here. Again, just as far as next steps, and I will come back to your question, Brian, is don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to contact me off outside of the sessions that we're offering. We do have the additional offerings coming up. All the registration links are on the ISPA website. So utilize that resource page, utilize the opportunities we have to get together. Know that you're not alone in this process, that we do have several districts that are getting originating agreements. We have several districts that are doing the subscribing process. So we're all kind of learning together with this. We are finding things that we need to correct and do better with, but we're trying to solve the data processing part of all of this, the data agreement. So definitely reach out beyond today. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Join us for All Things SOPPA every Tuesday, and get your questions answered there as well. That's just a good standing, almost like office hours type of thing to get your questions answered, and always know that 2 o'clock on Tuesdays that will be online available. So as we wrap up, if you do have additional questions, we'll stick around and answer those questions, but I appreciate your time. If you do have questions, you can throw them in the chat.